for Creative Cake Art. It is Tuesday and this is your Tuesday tidbit a little bit, okay? Today we are doing something that I'm pretty excited about. We're working with sugar cookies. I'm going to show you how to do a design that I was able to do from this past weekend. I had a cake order and my client decided to add on sugar cookies, which I was so excited about because I see all these sugar cookies everywhere all over the internet and people are doing amazing jobs on their sugar cookies, and I wanted to try it. So I was like, all right, I'm just gonna do a tutorial on it. But then I was like, but it would be great if I could actually have somebody pay me to do the sugar cookies. So that happened. Okay, universe, thank you. And I was able to do a sugar cookie order. So I want to kind of just show you what I did with a little bit of variation. We're going to do a little something different from what you've probably seen on my Instagram at Cake College, my sugar cookies from this past weekend, my anthropology cake. Okay, so, and also sugar cookies are really something that are like close to my heart because every year my mom and my brothers and sisters and I would bake this sugar cookie Christmas recipe. My mom still does it. She lives in Michigan, so I don't do it with her. But I should do it with my daughter, honestly. But anyway, my mom does this with us every year, and her mom did it with her, and her mom's mom did it with her. So it's a long time like tradition in my family, although the recipe that I'm using today is not from my family, which, you know, is a little bit different. They were more like really puffy sugar cookies, and we would use like the frosting out of a can and sprinkle. So this is a little bit more of a refined method, and I'm using this recipe that I got off the internet. I'll actually put the link below, but if you go to my Cakespiration, you'll see I have a stack of sugar cookies in a picture. You can find the recipe link there as well. This is a delicious recipe, so good. All right, so we're just gonna get started. Let me show you what I have. Okay, so I have two piping bags here. Now with sugar cookies, I've seen people do it where they just do the entire cookie in flood icing. I am not. I was like, oh, let's try that, but I'm just not. Actually, people, meaning Sweet Ams, she's a really huge popular internet cookie decorator. She has a ton of really great videos, and she just floods basically the entire cookie. But in my experience and from what I know about it, you actually need to put a dam. Now if you're feeling very courageous and brave about it, then go ahead and flood the whole daggone thing and, you know, see what happens. But for me, I need to put a dam. So I'm assuming that y'all know how to make royal icing. If you do not, there are a ton of recipes. I actually just got the recipe that I use off the back of the meringue powder canister. I use Wilton meringue powder, and as you can see, I have like a Wilton flooding jar. I don't know what this is, cylinder, squeeze bottle, whatever. This is really great because it's really flexible. You can store your flood icing in here, and I just use the Wilton meringue powder and do the recipe. And you want to make your flood icing, generally the consistency that you want is you want it to be runny, okay, but not too runny. So when you drag, after you make your icing, drag a spoon or a knife through it and like let it fall back onto itself. And if the line that has fallen back onto itself disappears within 5 to 10 seconds, then it's ready. If it takes longer than 10 seconds, then it's too stiff. If it takes under 5 seconds, then it's too runny. Okay, if it's too runny, obviously you need to add more powdered sugar. If it's too stiff, you need to add a little bit of water at a time until it's the right consistency. Again, that's kind of another tutorial, but assuming that you know how to make the royal icing for it, then this is what you're gonna do next. Okay, so you have also, you wanna do a little bit of a stiffer one, okay? So you want the one that you do, that you make your dam with. It essentially is a dam, like water holding, you know, like a piece of concrete or whatever holding water in, okay? You want for the dam to hold in the flood icing that you then are gonna put into your cookie. So the icing that goes inside a piping bag, and I'm using a Wilton number 2 tip, round tip, is gonna be just a slight bit stiffer, but you don't want it so stiff that it curls up. So that is something you kind of gotta just play around with. I'll take the flood icing, make the flood icing, and then take a separate bowl and slowly add in powdered sugar until it's a little bit stiffer. And then go ahead. You'll be able to see the consistency of my dam icing not the damn icing, but the damn icing, and kind of get an idea of what it needs to be. But again, this is something that you need to play around with for yourself and see what works. You don't want it to be so stiff also, because it'll start hurting your hand. But anyway, enough talking about it. Let me just show you, and then you can get a visual on all this stuff. Oh, and the second bag is just for we're gonna pipe some green dots. So this is just flood icing that was tinted green with a little bit of just regular green food coloring, gel paste food coloring, and then put into a piping bag. And I have a Wilton number 1 tip on this one, okay? And the reason why I have rubber bands is because this is so liquidy, it'll just spill out the other side. So just for like convenience, not to be such a mess, okay? And then get yourself, you don't need one of these. This is convenient, I feel like, because you could just store the extra royal icing in here. You don't have to worry about the cleanup and all that kind of stuff. But if you don't want to buy one of these, you can also buy like squeeze bottles on Amazon that are made for cookie decorating, or you could use just a regular piping bag and just use a bigger, you can use like a number 2, number 3, maybe even a number 4 tip on to your piping bag if you don't have or don't want to buy one of the squeeze bottles, okay? But I do recommend getting that. All right, so the key here to piping this is that you don't want to touch, you want to touch down onto the cookie. It's almost like piping, it's almost like when you do writing, okay? You want to touch it down and then lift it up and let the string kind of flow around, okay? So, starting at the point here, or not. Okay, and then I just have a Q-tip, not a Q-tip, what is this? A toothpick here, and you can just wipe up any like weird things, or kind of if you want to straighten your line or make it a little bit more pointy in some spots. It gets kind of weird at the bottom here. If you need to stop, like that was pretty easy for me to just go all the way around. But depending on your cookie, you may need to stop and turn it. You could either pipe it onto a turntable to make it easy to turn, and you don't have to stop. You can kind of just hold your line there and turn your turntable a slight bit to make it easier on your wrist to get a better angle. Or you could always stop, and although it might make a little bit of a lumpy place there, it really is not going to make a difference once you put your flood icing on. It should cover it up, okay? Because you could just continue the line. So if you need to break your line, or if you're piping like that and your line breaks, it's not a big deal. You just start where you left off, and then if you need to kind of just smooth out any lump, smooth out a lump. Also, I should mention this, when you're making your royal icing, speaking of lumps, you want to sift together the meringue powder and the powdered sugar. The reason why you want to sift it is because these tips are so small, especially like this number 1 tip. Any like lump in your powdered sugar will get caught in the tip, and it becomes super annoying when you're trying to pipe something, because you can see you need to be, fairly consistent, and you don't want to stop the flow of your icing in the middle if you don't need to. And if you have a lot of lumps in your royal icing, then you'll have to constantly stop the flow and constantly trying to like stick things up there and being very weird and trying to get the lumps out of your icing tip, okay? It almost like you would almost have to like let all the icing out and start over. So annoying. So to save yourself a little bit of trouble, make sure that you sift your powdered sugar. All right, next thing that we're going to do is you want to put these, I just have like a little piece of wet paper towel here. You could use like a rag or whatever, but you want to put those inside so that they don't get dry in the tips, because then you'll have to clean that out as well. All right, then take your flood icing And I just have my toothpick here to help me. You're gonna see. So start almost at the edge. You don't want to take it all the way to the edge because you want to kind of safeguard yourself from overflowing, because even though you have this dam here, it can go over the dam. So it's better to go around not as close to the edge and then pull it out with a toothpick. So just go ahead and flood that, and you can kind of just do it in a circle. And then you just take your toothpick and, like I told you, just pull it out toward the edge. And this takes a little second to dry, but you want to work fairly quickly because once it starts to dry up, it won't be as easy to pull it toward the edge. And for this particular cookie, I like to pull this pointy part out with my toothpick. You can see, just pull it out like that to make it a little bit more defined. Okay, so that is looking pretty good. I love the way that turns out. And if you notice here, my cookie has like a little bit of a, just kind of a shade, a little bit of a lighter shade to it. That is because royal icing has been in here for a few days, and I mixed it up a little bit, but it's not entirely incorporated. Like if you let your royal icing sit for a little while, the water will start to separate, I guess, from whatever, I don't know, the sugar, the blah, 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 whatever else is in there. But basically, two things start to separate. And so if you don't incorporate it well, you'll end up with this. It's not a big deal because this is white, but if you're working with a colorful royal icing, you want to make sure that you reincorporate it, either let it out of the jar or whatever, mix it up really well, whatever you need to do so that you don't have that streakiness to it. But for me, I'm not going to worry about it right now. Okay, now, so next, what people usually do when they're piping dots onto the cookie is they take, while it's still wet, they take and go ahead and pipe the dots. I'm not going to do that because I prefer the way that it looks when the cookie has dried a little bit. I want the dots to sit up and have like some body to them, not to sink down into the icing, which is what generally happens if you pipe the wet icing into the wet icing. It'll just flood inside, which is pretty, but just not what I wanted to do. I prefer to do it the way that I'm about to show you. So let me just move this cookie over. Now, while that dries, I have one that I already did that has been drying a little bit. Now, it's not dry by any means because these take about 24 hours before they dry, sometimes a little more. But this one is dry enough that this flood icing should sit on top. Okay, so in order to pipe the dots, I just take my mint green and I'm going to pipe just a little bit to make sure it's okay. Okay, so take my mint green. And I'm going to go 1, 2, 3, and 4 in a line. And then pipe in between. 1, 2, 3, and 4. And that's how you make sure that the spacing stays fairly consistent, is you just kind of pipe in between each other. So then go 1, 2, 3, let your pressure up, and 4, move down, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. You can see even with my rubber band, this is still coming out. My bag might need to be twisted a little bit. I'm gonna do one more row. 1, 2, and 3. So you don't have to really, actually, let's do one more. You don't have to really measure these dots. Just make sure that you pipe in between one another. Now that's pretty much all there is to it. So you see, that's super, it's super simple, even if you don't really work with cookies much. Like I said, this is pretty much my second, or now for this video, my third time. But when I did it for my order, it was my second time doing flood icing, royal icing cookies. And this is my third time, and it's really easy to do. So you just want to get a little practice with it, have the right methods. But now I want to show you just some like decorative elements we can do onto the cookie. For what I did for my order and what you saw, I took this bow mold that I've used before, and I got it off of Amazon, and it's really cool because it has all these different kinds of bows with it. But I just took that and I used some the baby shower that I made the cookies and the cake for was a peach and a mint theme. So I just took some peach gel color and I colored some white fondant, and I went ahead and I put it inside of the bow. Now originally I used this bigger bow, but I thought I would try this little bow because I think it's so cute. So here's the mold. Okay, so try that one. Now you may want to let this dry a little bit more, like dry overnight before you go ahead and put the bow on, but I'm gonna just go ahead and put it on now. And then also what I have here is I just did some little wafer paper roses and dusted them with some peach color petal dust. Now if you don't know how to make these wafer paper roses, they're really easy. You can go to our Fix It Friday, the buttercream cake, how to say yes to your client with this simple but beautiful buttercream cake, something like a really long explanation. But anyway, go to Fix It Friday and look at the buttercream cake with the wafer paper roses on it, and in that tutorial you can watch, it's actually free, I show you how to make the wafer paper roses. Okay, so I just did a couple little tiny rosettes, and I want to put a little bit of a pearl dust, so I'm going to put a little bit of that down, and just what I do is just spread it over the paintbrush and then just kind of tap the paintbrush above what you want to make shimmery. Now this never, me and a friend were talking about how this never shows up on camera. So you probably won't even be able to see what I'm doing, but you all know what pearl dust looks like. It literally just pearlizes everything, and it's so pretty. So I like to just add a little bit of that. This is Wilton brand, and it's totally edible, so it's fine to put all over this cookie. And then a little bit on the bow. And you can even put a little bit on the roses. And it just adds a nice little touch. People may not even totally notice it, but they'll notice it like in their mind. They'll be like, oh, that's so pretty, but they may not even notice that there's something shiny going on there. But I don't know if you can maybe see that or not. But either way, okay. So now I kind of just let this dry so that it has like a little bit of a fold to it. But I'm also going to pipe my icing on both of these on the loop part of the bow, so it kind of sits up and has a little bit of dimension to it. And then you can just go ahead and set it there. And for this cookie, I want to put the roses. I think it might be overkill, so we'll just leave this one as is. But maybe this, I think this might be ready for some dots now, so we'll go ahead and do that. Okay, and that wasn't quite ready, but this is okay because actually you can get to see what it looks like when it sinks in there. And you can see it's just, I mean, it's okay, but it's just not as beautiful, but that's all right. So then we're going to just put a few of the roses. And you can use some stiffer royal icing or even some buttercream if you wanted to pipe a few leaves. Actually, I think I will do that, but I just need to go grab some buttercream. Okay, so just use some mint green buttercream because that's what I have on hand, and pipe a few leaves here. All right, and then give that a little bit of the pearl dust. Oh, and also on the cookies that I did for the order, you saw that there was like little gold leaf on there. That was literally edible gold leaf, but as you know, it's just like not cheap for that stuff, and so I needed literally to use all of it for the cake and the cookies, so I don't have any more. But I added that little gold leaf on here, which is just, you just take a little piece off and add it if you wanted to do that. And that is pretty much it, my friends. Thank you for joining me again for this episode of Tuesday Tidbit. Again, I hope that you try this cookie recipe. It was so great. I was really worried about the cookies having to be frozen, and I saw that somebody else was having a problem where their cookies were like totally puffing up in the oven, and I'm like, no, this cannot happen. But then I found this recipe. The author of it said they don't need to be frozen, and there's very little expansion, and the flavor is delicious, and it truly is. They're not too crispy. They still have a little bit of a soft texture to them, which is what you kind of want cookies to be. And I really love it. All right, so you guys, thank you. I'll see you if you have any questions or comments. As always, I say this every time, but if you have questions or comments, please leave them below for me, below this video. And if you have anything that you'd like to see, any suggestions, please do let me know. We are open to that. All right, and I'll see you guys next Tuesday for another episode of our Tuesday Tidbit in a little bit. All right.